It's an honor to have another veteran with us tonight, Representative Jake Ellzey from Texas 6th Congressional District, another graduate of the United States Naval Academy, 2 in a row. We'll keep the streak going as long as Jeremy stays up in his plane above D.C. and the weather holds on. Representative Ellzey served as a fighter pilot in the Navy. He deployed 9 times, including 1 with SEAL Team 5 on the ground with them. So a wealth of knowledge and experience in the fight over the last 20 years in the war on terror, and is now on the Appropriations Committee, heavily engaged in making sure warfighters have what they need. I should also point out, you were also Commissioner for Veterans Affairs down in Texas for a while, too. Yeah, so has been a kind of lifelong fighter for veterans in the military community. It's an honor to have you with us.
Let's not go that far, but I'm happy to be with you. By the way, this is seltzer water, in case it's not straight vodka. Hey, raise your hand if you're a veteran. Okay, good, good. Just wanted to see how I talk. Acronyms or not.
Reporters, think tankers, veterans out here in the crowd. I want to jump in and kind of talk about the last 20 years of conflict and your experience. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of questions about the direction and mission of SOF going forward. And I mentioned the former Secretary of the Army's comments on reducing the numbers and use of SOF. But it seems like our adversaries are engaging more in the gray zone. Senator Sheehy just talked a lot about that. And a lot of what Secretary Warmoth was mentioning was a reduction in counterinsurgency, a reduction in counterterrorism, and she saw an increase in irregular warfare. Counterterrorism and counterinsurgency are parts of irregular warfare, so it's kind of disjointed statement. But I just got to ask, have we been wrong for the last several years on how we're preparing SOF for the next fight? Are there things that we've gotten right in this?
Oh, I think the whole idea of warfare is transforming itself from what we thought it was 80 years ago to something entirely different now. And I think country to country, you're going to have a different definition of warfare than generally we do here in the United States. As a beneficent country who loathes going to war, we tend to think of warfare as something, well, they have attacked us with kinetic effects. War is now an entirely different definition if you're our adversaries who want to supplant us. Let's talk about China for a second. What kind of war do they wage? Is it mano a mano on the battlefield, in the air, at sea? No. It's complete war. If you consider, I'll just ask you to look at it this way. What is killing 70,000 Americans within the United States every year? 200 a day. 200 Americans every day. That is one airliner every day going down. Anyone? It's fentanyl. They're killing 70,000 Americans every year. All of those components are coming from one place, and that's China. So how do you defeat an army before you field it? That's how you do it. Intellectual property theft, cyber warfare. I was at the agency today. The realm in which people are fighting us on different battlefields is prevalent right now. So I would ask you today, if 4 countries are ganging up on Ukraine the way they are, is that just Russia versus Ukraine? No. It looks very much like 1938 to me. And then you add into it that we just don't even talk about 200 Americans dying every day. If one plane crashed every day for a year, would we be really upset about that? Absolutely. We would demand a stop to that plane crashing every day. And yet it's happening every day, 18 to 49. So there's your Army, there's your welders, there's your future economy getting killed at the rate of now 300,000 over the last 4 years. 300,000 Americans dead from fentanyl alone, not just drug overdose. So the definition of war has changed, and we're being fought in all domains. The question is it worth going kinetic over in response?
It seems like that leaves a lot of space in the gray zone to operate, to push forward, to maybe not allow this fight to happen only on our territory. It doesn't have to be kinetic warfare, as you mentioned. what are the ways you see that we can better enable maybe the SOF community or others to engage in this fight below the threshold of war, wherever it has to be?
It's a great question. The acquisitions process that we have in the United States is broken and needs to be completely revamped. You need to turn the Pentagon into a triangle, and that's a start. You need to get the middleman out of the way. I will speak candidly. I know this is recorded. NAVAIR and NAVSEA need to go away. We need to build our military like we did in 1941, whenever everybody said, oh, wait, we're at war. We don't have years to develop this. We have to win now. We don't have years to develop this if 27 is the date. We don't have years. We have a year and a half. And the Marines asked for an LSM 5 years ago. NAVSEA said, well, it's got to have this, 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 and this. It went from 50 million a copy to 500 million a copy, and we have that many of them. They asked for them 5 years ago. They just wanted a boat that'll get them where they need to go in the Indo-Pacific region that doesn't look like a Navy ship. So the Pentagon went, well, it's got to look like a Navy ship. It's got to cost 10 times that. That looks good. How many do we have? That many. And that's just one case. I mean, we can go to the Army and talk about the canceled programs that they've had. I believe that SOCOM should be able to fast-track some of these things and do DT and OT, developmental test and operational test, on the field. It's what we used to do in the Navy in the 50s when we built jet after jet after jet after jet. There's two versions of the F-9, Cougar and Panther. I mean, it's the same thing, F-9. One was swept wing, one was straight wing. And they just kept developing those as they went. They were safe enough to fly, safe enough to fly in combat, and it didn't take them 20 years to develop it. So it's interesting, and I think right now we have a unique opportunity that is in the service chiefs, the service secretaries, a new administration, as well as the COCOMs are ready to work together to cut out the middleman from developing some of these systems. And I think we need to be able to dedicate some of that money to the COCOMs and the chiefs of staff to go, here's what we need right now, work with the users. We have a number of disruptive companies right now that are building things faster than you can keep up. Saronic, Anduril, Palantir, they all build things faster than we can work over here in the Pentagon or on Capitol Hill. So give them the leeway to build technologically advanced weapon systems. Quite frankly, give me anything off the shelf. Our current military, young men and women, are so deeply ingrained in high tech and gaming and everything else, they don't need a 400-page operating manual. Give it to them and see what they can do with it, and then we'll develop the manual later. So we need to be a lot faster in what we're doing, and that includes with SOF.
How do we get some of those things, those barriers out of the way to buying COTS items, commercial off-the-shelf items, to allow the military, a unit to say, this is the problem we're looking at, we need this piece of equipment. How do we drive forward to that? What's standing in the way? Is it just telling the Pentagon to fire?
It's the Pentagon.
Okay.
It's the Pentagon. The 4 stars are wanting this. 4-star COCOMs, the 4-star staffers. And I think in Congress there's also an understanding that we have to move faster. How do we beat these folks? And it's the Rice Bowl at the Pentagon. Remember, the Pentagon didn't start its construction until December 7th of 1941. That's literally the date they began construction. So we didn't have the Pentagon in winning World War II. But now it's been such an ingrained over 80 years bureaucracy with rice bowls that you got to justify your jobs, and so they just tend to get in the way. I'm sure they're well-meaning, but they care about their jobs. For instance, the FLIR, Future Long-Range Assault Aircraft, which is it's an improvement on the V-22, and it's completed its flight regime. They're not going to fly it for 2 years. Why? Because, as they're fondly called, the minions in the Pentagon, 800 of them, 800 people have a little bite of that aircraft. And they all have their opinions on what you need to change and fix. Ask me why so many Army programs have been canceled. It's them. Because once the requirements office gets a hold of it, people who may or may not be engineers, but says, well, it's got to do that too. It's got to do that too. Why do we still not have a Marine One? We're still flying the Sea King. So there's a lot of programs. And how do we do it? Blunt force trauma. We've got to make it very clear that this is how it's going to be from now on.
There's a narrative out there that says the last 20 years let some of our combat skills atrophy because we're just focused on counterterrorism. you might have a different experience in this because you've flown over the battlefield, dropped ordnance on the battlefield, and you've been on the ground to coordinate that stuff. So you've seen both sides of this. And if I look at Russia and what's going on in Ukraine, it looks like they are incapable of coordinating fire and maneuver. Do you feel that we have let some of our skills atrophy, or do you think that some of our warfighters are actually the best in the world at doing some of these high-end skills that we're primed if we could just get out of their way?
That's a great question. I wouldn't say they've atrophied. I'd just say that we haven't used them. My time with the SEALs and continuing to run into special operators, my thought is that we have the smartest, most creative warriors who say never quit, that are easily adaptable to a new environment, and they are unstoppable. So yeah, there were some things that we weren't doing like we were doing prior to Afghanistan and Iraq. Doesn't mean that tool's not in their toolkit. It's just like the curveball they haven't used in a while. It's still in there. They can just give me a few more throws and we'll get there. So they're incredibly smart, incredibly adaptive, and with a little training here and there, or not. I mean, they have all the capabilities that they need.
We've seen, you mentioned a proliferation of technology over the last just 10 years, or even shorter time frame, of new technologies from UAS to counter-UAS. One of the things that unfortunately has kind of spread very rapidly just in the last few years is our enemy's ability to see us at night, NVGs, thermals. Yep. You and I were in the military at a time when we owned the night. Right. It was our area to fight in, and it was our advantage. That seems to have eroded. What's the next technology that you see that can help give us that gap again? To say, this is our space, we operate in here, and you can't touch us in this area.
Well, I think drone technology is certainly one of them that is so fast and hard to see and doesn't have a signature. So I'm sure that there's some technologies being developed to counter that, but it does make it more difficult for us to operate now. And then, although you can find them out there, they're still not as advanced as ours are, and they're not widely proliferated in all over the world. But I will say on the technology piece, SOF is never going to go away. The need for that, and that, whatever she said, that was her opinion in the previous administration. At the point at which we never need to do SSE anymore, or take out or capture one guy, that's never going to happen, because generally if you're capturing one guy, you're going to get the SSE too, and you can't do that with any type of weapon. So, in an environment today in which everybody communicate with encrypted communications, and the enemy has the ability to spread out more and be all over the place, that's where we need these special operators. But there's technologies all over the place. I quite frankly, when I go have a new company come in and sit down with me and tell me what they're doing, it's something I've never seen before. So the number of opportunities for us to develop technologies that are going to keep us on the leading edge are staggering. We literally can't keep up. And at DIU in Austin and the Capital Factory, man, people will just come up all the time and say, I've got this new system. And they are mind-blowing. And you have an entire generation of young Americans who love their country, who want nothing more than to defend her country. And as an older guy, I'm 55 now, people will talk about this younger generation. I'm staggered by the number of 30 and younger people who are going out on their own, developing these incredible companies. They're not primes. They don't want to be primes. They want to buy in on their own company, and they want no rules in how they do what they're going to do. They like the idea that when we put out a request for information or request for a system, that it be 1 or 2 pages long that says, here's the effect, instead of identifying through a 500-page document exactly what we're going to buy because it's already been built by a prime. I love the primes too. They create thrust that can take the old airplane airborne. But these other companies are able to develop things much, much quicker without any rules. And so when you've got these 2-page RFPs, then you might end up with a bunch of different systems that will accomplish that effect but look entirely different.
Is there one item in this year's kind of plan for the defense bill for appropriations that you are energized about? I'll give you a chance to speak about, your topic or a fight that you're willing to have or that you're looking to have this year. Is there one item, maybe two?
Gen 6 for Air Force and Navy.
Okay.
Gen 6 aircraft.
Okay.
NGAD, now F-47 and F/A-XX. We need both of them. Mm-hmm. One of them doesn't get you 100% of the solution. They're each 50%. They are an absolute must-have. As we watch the Chinese, it was a gift to us. I don't know why they're flying them out in the open, but they're flying their Gen 6 aircraft. Anybody who questions whether or not we need them, and both of them, they're not paying attention. And for those who don't believe that carriers are survivable, I will tell you they are. We have a lot of exquisite capabilities that ensure that survivability. And if they're not survivable, why are the Chinese trying to build more of them? So you get into your ice bowl fights from time to time, and so, from service to service or kind of undersea, above sea, any kind of platform. Everybody's scurrying for money, but that fight's been going on for 80 years. The aircraft carrier, and ask Pappy Paparo, who I worked for, the Indo-PACOM commander, he will tell you the carrier is as relevant now as it ever has been, and nothing can deliver kinetic effects in number and by day as the aircraft carrier. A submarine can't do it. A fixed-base bomber can't do it. And finally, when you're talking about the Indo-PACOM area specifically, there are not enough Patriots to defend an island because the island doesn't move. The island doesn't move. Nothing has to slow down to hit an island. If you're one of 10,000 ships in the Pacific Ocean and you're not even the biggest one and you have exquisite capabilities, how are you going to find that one aircraft carrier? It's very, very difficult. When you put a picture up on a map of an aircraft carrier that's not even to scale in the Pacific Ocean, it looks like there's 5 ships in the Pacific Ocean. There's tens of thousands of them, and you got to find it. So the hypersonic versus the carrier killer, yeah, they're trying to take it out because that's the one thing that can deliver kinetic effects over and over and over again in massive capabilities. And we need the F/A-XX to extend that range and keep us outside of their envelope.
Well, I will turn it over to questions now. I could go on with dozens more, but if anybody in the audience has a question, please feel free to stand up, raise your hand, and get after it.
The first one's the hardest.
Yeah.
I knew it. Everybody kind of does that when they're about to ask a question. So. To China? You'd have to ask Pappy that. That's not my realm. My realm is just to provide the effects that they need, and Hellscape is something that he's asked for, so companies like Saronic, and as we've seen in the Black Sea, where now not only have the Ukrainians taken out most of the Black Sea fleet, or at least sidelined it, now they're taking out aircraft with it. So that's a good idea. I don't know what, but I'm not into the strategy side or the war planning side. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Since they're regional, it's a great question, and I didn't plant that. Yes, I think every COCOM should have a pot of money that they work with the staffs at the with OSD to formulate what it is that they need to better serve that region. AFRICOM is not the same as Indo-PACOM. None of them are the same. That's why we have different COCOMs. So yeah, they should have a pot of money, set up the strategy, and then develop rapidly the capabilities that they need because there's only 11 carriers, and at any one time, there's only 5 of them. So they need their own forces. They shouldn't have to request forces to come down, unless it's manned, unless it's a prime project or a prime an airplane or a ship or something like that. They should have their own capabilities in ISR and kinetic effects that don't require a request for a squadron or a ship.
Do you think we're right-sized in the structure of the COCOMs right now? And there's a discussion of, do we need another Goldwater Nichols? Do we need to reshuffle the deck?
I think we need a new Goldwater Nichols. I don't think that should be aimed I think it should be aimed most towards eliminating some of the things like the requirement for jointness. I nearly didn't screen for command because I wasn't jointed. I screened for command because I hated the Pentagon so much I volunteered to go to Iraq with SEAL Team 5. But the requirement for jointness leaves a lot of people on the sideline. There's some great warriors, some great officers, some great commanders who all they want to do is stick in a squadron. But we make them leave after 3 years. So right at the time of their peak capabilities, we're going to make them leave because we want them to be on the career, screen path, career screen path. I think that's absolutely ludicrous. There are certain officers who never want to advance past 04, and they just want to fly and fight. I'm speaking from aviation because that's where I came from. And they should be able to do that. They should have every opportunity to just be, okay, you're not going to get a fit rep. You're going to continue to train these young men and women who are coming in at age 26 who are very wet behind the ears. You're going to train them to be the best warriors they can be. And you're going to stay in 04 until 20 years. And there's a lot of people I know that would be just fine with that. Don't want to go to the Pentagon, don't want to go to a shore tour. They like going to sea. Keep them there. So I went off on a tangent there, but we need a new Goldwater Nichols, but I think the COCOM question is much, much bigger, and that is debatable, and there probably is some room for negotiation. I think most importantly, we have too many flag officers. Way too many, because they always bring staff.
Universal. Everybody agrees on this.
Every time a 4-star comes to the Capitol, they have more staff than I do. Why is that? What would you say you do here? I've never gotten it. I mean, and every admiral has staffs, and 4-stars have more staffs. And I think if there's a shortage of people in the fleet, they need to close and lock the outer ring of the Pentagon, and send everybody back to the fleet.
I guess you got to jump in and say, it sounds like you're a fan of homesteading also, allowing people to stay at the same base instead of transferring
Absolutely. Yeah, it's gone are the days where everybody's a bachelor or single in the military. Families do count. They should. Family stability is important. Now, you can't do it for everybody. I mean, some people you're going to have to move from time to time, but moving every 3 years, what did I mean? I moved, in 20 years, I moved 15 times. And I was single for the first 15 years, so it was, cumbersome but fairly easy because I didn't have to worry about anybody else. But we have to change the way we're doing business. We have to change the way we do command screenings. If you're hiring somebody to be the CEO of a squadron, I had a Super Hornet squadron. I had 12 airplanes worth $1 billion. And 250 people, and nobody interviewed me face-to-face. They went off my paper. Well, paper could be used in many different things, including a toilet paper roll. So I think I think you need to interview. You can do it via Zoom. You can have a group of questions asked, and you might tilt the scale and find somebody that you didn't have the best paper, because it's generally subjective anyway. Even if they try to standardize the fit rep system, you're not going to do that. And then we end up having some folks who shouldn't have screened for command because they had a sea daddy. Sound familiar? And then they get fired for misconduct, and 3 other careers were ruined. I'm not speaking from experience of any kind on that, but I've seen it firsthand. I'll put it to you that way. Did I go off on a tangent?
No, that's wonderful. Okay. It actually made me think of recently with the USS Truman, you had by all accounts, a competent commander removed from command for a mishap. Do you think the military needs to get away from zero defect mentality with our commanders and how we love people?
Nimitz ran a ship aground as a lieutenant, and then he got 5 stars. Then he, inarguably, won the war in the Pacific. He ran a ship aground as a lieutenant, and he got 5 stars. What is wrong with us? I want to stop publicizing when somebody gets fired. A pilot can make a mistake and crash a plane. It happens. To relieve the skipper immediately because, that's what we do. And then you put it on Navy Times. That's so wrong. You've just destroyed an entire a person's life because somebody made a mistake. You want to relieve them, okay, if there's cause. But what you're doing now is you're telling people who you might really want to stay in the Navy, who decide to get out after 7 or 8 years because they know full well that if anything goes wrong in their career, they're going to be splashed on the Navy Times and be and have no career, and it's going to be there forever. And so that is one of my beefs with how we do things. We do have to change how we do business, military-wide, from as small as how you treat your skippers if you fire them. Some people deserve it. I mean, misconduct is one thing. But where else does somebody get fired on the planet? The Marine Corps doesn't do this. The Air Force doesn't do this. The Army doesn't do it. But the Navy seems to get a thrill from firing somebody and then destroying them after that. And I think you could look at all the services and find different ways that they don't do things right by their people. You just can't do that.
You mentioned Nimitz. McCain's father, I think, was relieved twice during World War II and still rose to the rank. So there is a precedent for giving people second, third chances. We've just gotten away from it for whatever reason. Ann, go ahead.
Block grants. Like I said, let the COCOMs get a block grant and develop what they want to, and have the authority. If they're impressive enough to be a COCOM, they're impressive enough to be allowed the authority to develop what's best for their region. And you know, we're in Congress. We are so busy with other things, we don't get to pay attention enough to everything. We're just too busy. So I think they should have that authority. Chief of Staff General George wants 2 battalions of FLRAAs right now, and he should be able to develop those and get them flying and do DT and OT. We've flown them for hundreds of hours. They're good enough. Fly them, buy them, get them on the line right now. That's how the Army's going to get in the fight in the Indo-PACOM. So as we're talking about things that are going to get us in the fight in the Indo-PACOM, that's FLRAA. So if we don't fly it for 2 more years, 2027. Oh, LSM. Oh, well, we're going to get them in 5 years. Guys, and then we talk about it too, right? Oh, no, we're not going to be able to do this for 5 years. G's going, okay, no LSM, okay, no FLRAA, so no Marine Corps, no Army. Good, we can do it with that. Come on. I also don't want to see us continue to broadcast the locations of ships anymore. Every time I open up Navy Times and I see, well, here's where the whole fleet is. Xi Jinping goes, okay, you guys are idiots. Listen, we need to be on a wartime footing right now, because everything we do, from not buying the things that we need to fight in the Indo-PACOM because we got a bureaucracy that won't let us, to telling people where our ships are, we continue to do these things, and I don't think anybody's thinking about, do you not understand that's open source intel, and we're broadcasting what we will and won't do. Wow. But back to your original question, give them block grants. It's time to develop this stuff. Let Saronic companies like that build it. They're cheap. Do it. Get it done. Get it all out there. I don't really care. We don't have to have a program of record. Not everybody has to. There doesn't always have to be just one winner. And we don't need to, again, when you're talking about these exquisite capabilities, we can learn in a week how to fight these things. The Ukrainians are doing it every 2 weeks. They develop something new. Oh, wait a minute, you don't have your Army field manual. That you know what I mean? So we have to be much more agile across the board. That's a great question. That's a great question, but we need to talk about it. We need to tell them that all is not well. They're not our friends. Russia's not our friends. China's not our friends. We need to go back to history and show them the parallels between 1938 and now. We're 4 little men men of small stature, literally. None of them taller than 5'6". It started World War II by combining together and then going after different countries and then combining to go after one. They're doing the exact same thing now. I don't know what the fear factor is in being honest about it, but we need to be honest about it. I think one thing we need to do is look hard at our classification processes. We classify everything, and it's not that, oh, I'm going to classify that. No, I think some of the stuff that's most highly classified right now about our enemy's capabilities, our adversaries' capabilities, needs to be declassified and broadcast so that the American people understand the threat. And then when we start talking about budgeting and what we're going to cut and how much we should spend, the American people realize that 3% is not enough to prepare for the next conflict. And then if that conflict were to occur, so I'm all about preventing that conflict, because if that conflict starts, we don't care about $36 trillion in debt anymore. It's about national survival. And then our debt goes through the roof. So let's spend 5% right now. Let's get everybody what we need. Let's do it quickly. And sure, let's leverage our veterans to talk about those things and be honest. But in the meantime, we need to declassify a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, if people knew what China is doing, and now I kind of lose track of what it is and isn't classified, but because we classify everything. No, we can't talk about that. Classification is power for bureaucrats. That gives them job security, and it gives them the ability to play I have a secret. What China is doing, from fentanyl compounds to their shipbuilding to their intellectual property theft to doing things on the internet, those things need to be revealed so that people kind of go, oh gosh, this is a crisis. Yes, it is. Please build up our military so we can fight that threat.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for spending the evening with us, for imparting us with so much wisdom about how we can fix some of this stuff. I don't know if it'll all get done. I hope so. But thank you for continuing to fight on behalf of veterans and on behalf of America and everything you're doing in Congress. Thank you very much.
This is a great interview. Thank you.
Also, got to end with a challenge point, right? Got to give you one of these.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Oh.
Hello? Good to see you.
We just wanted to thank all of you for coming tonight, and really just an amazing evening learning so much about the future of Special Operations Forces and everything that's going on in our country. Thank you to the Senator for joining us, and as well to the Congressman Ellzey for being here as well. For all of you, we want to just remind you to please stay in touch with us. Join us at vetsonduty.org, and you can sign up right there if you know a veteran in your community who cares about these issues and cares about having really sound national security policies to keep Americans safe. Tell them to sign up with us, and we're happy to coordinate with them and continue this fight moving forward.